It took me a few years to even understand the value of it, but I bought it in the early 1980s because I sensed it was a very unique building, but I didn't understand the whole story. But it was built by I.P. Campbell in 1871, and it was, of all things, a fresh oyster parlor for a number of years. The reason it was a fresh oyster parlor is that the people of Boston settled in Harper, and they had to have their seafood. The seafood was brought on wet straw by train. So the oysters stayed fresh. There wasn't the contamination that we have today. And I can only imagine, I would love to have it as a fresh oyster parlor again because it's so rare. You'll also notice at the top that there are 3 Gothic windows, which makes it very rare, very unique. It's the last remaining Prairie Gothic style architecture in the state of Kansas. We also believe it is the last remaining fresh oyster parlor. Now the building is listed at long last on the National Historic Register, and the Balmer Fund organization is trying to get some assistance to put funding together to restore this back to its original usefulness as a fresh oyster parlor. Wouldn't that be fun, out in the middle of Kansas, coming for fresh seafood on a Friday or Saturday night? It can happen. It did once. It's so hard to save historic buildings in downtown Harper is the chronic vandalism, and nothing is ever done about it because the people have no respect or appreciation of our rich heritage. And you'll notice that this window and the windows in the hotel across the street, known as Patterson House or Rosalie's Hotel in later years, all of those windows were broken out. I even heard a confession, a recorded confession of who had done it, but nothing was ever done about it. And we stood the loss of those windows, and my heart was so broken. This was in the early 80s. I left town because there was no police support. I couldn't get any help, and it just shattered me because we just repainted both buildings bright tulip red, and it was all over with BB guns or slingshots. And we're going to take a trip around the back of the building, and I want to show you what's happened in more recent wall years. Of the Anchor Oyster Parlor that you saw previously. Tragically, a local businessman apparently was bribed to try to knock it down and destroy it. And even though he said he did it, he even told me he did it, we could never get a police report on this. We could never collect insurance. And it was just heartbreaking because it's the last known oyster parlor left on the prairies. And we had a private donor who stepped forward at that time and paid $17,000 to save this building for us. He doesn't even live here, and out of the goodness of his heart. But now we'd like to find funding to get it completed and put it back in business. Is an original Valentine Diner sandwich bar, and we would really like to see it restored and put back to usefulness. Sadly, as I've said, there is no respect for history in this town at this point. The children need to be educated. They have broken out all the windows since it's been sitting here, but it's still doable. It's still something that can be restored, and we can move it. It'd be very easy to move it and have it set up where people could actually come and buy ice cream, sundaes, malts, and hamburgers, just like the good old days. is our fabulous Buckeye building, built in 1885 by a Cincinnati developer, Nicholas Wolf. He built several buildings in Harper, but this is the only one that's left. He was a very prominent businessman in Cincinnati who invested in the future of this town. Tragically, the city of Harper is trying to demolish this building. They haven't even done an engineering study or an inspection, but they're going to demolish it anyway. That's just the way they operate in small town America. It's really horrible. We have recently had an engineering study done, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with this building except that it needs a new roof. It could have many, many revitalized uses. It once was a dormitory for college kids. It had all sorts of retail businesses. A lot of people remember having the variety store for many years. The former inhabitant many years ago was an attorney who was a bootlegger, and he didn't have a bathroom upstairs, and the story goes that he would use a bedpan, and then he would toss it out the front window, and children were forbidden to walk upon this side of the street. Well, we want to put it to a better use than that. It could work very well as senior housing, or it could work extremely well as a library, which this town desperately needs. We really are working hard, and we're trying to find people that catch the vision of saving this important building. Can you imagine if they demolished all of the historic buildings in downtown Harper, as they're hell-bent on doing? You can see all the vacant lots. There will only be 6 buildings left in this town. Our mission, our goal is to educate people in this community to learn to appreciate their heritage. Now, I've been working for 40 years trying to do this, and I won't give up. I don't know what it is in me, why I don't give up with all the adversity and all the attacks, but somehow I still have hope, I still have a dream, I still have a vision. Back in the 1880s, the 1890s, Harper was known as the intellectual oasis of America. The most sophisticated, educated, intelligent people moved to this town. It was the Queen City of America. I don't know what happened. I guess corruption. I read in the early newspapers that corruption began very, very early in this community. Anyways, you can see it by the vacant lots. It's pretty wasted, but there's still a little bit of hope, and we are hoping that there are people out there in the world of the internet that will catch our vision and help the Balmer Fund organization save downtown Harper, Kansas in spite of itself. This bright green rack is seen in various locations across the prairies. It's the Prairie Connection, which is our all-volunteer grassroots tab that comes out 10 times a year. We're pretty proud of it, having been published for 14 years now with our all-volunteer staff. This is sitting in front of the original Harper movie theater. It's now called the Prairie Arts Theater. And it was used for a couple of years. We had wonderful concerts. We had the 5-man trio, a regional group that was really well known. They really worked hard to try to help us restore this theater, but unfortunately local people just didn't have any interest in supporting it. So we're now working, trying to get people from the outside interested in this